In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, we learn about the Tower of Babel. The tower was constructed as a way for humankind to make a name for itself and reach heaven in all its glory. Uh, obviously, God was not pleased with this. This was an insult to the mighty creator, and therefore worthy of punishment. God's punishment for the people of Babylon was to disrupt their speech so that they never may again become one people. They were henceforth scattered to different corners of the earth, different people, different communication for the end of time. Welcome back to Draconic, where we can't speak nuts because the chicken is on the gaming tub. It is no secret that the great success of mankind can often be attributed to our complex and versatile communication. Though our brains give us good ideas, the ability to speak gives us the ability to tell other humans about our ideas, henceforth making those ideas realities. This is why the Babylonians were cursed with such a unique affliction. Instead of, other forms of godly punishment, like turning people into pillars of salt or raining hellfire upon people or fire or brimstone. I don't read the Bible, okay? I believe it. Alright, well, I'm just saying, like, of all the forms of punishment, God's got some pretty creative ways of punishing people, but the Babylonians, they got it bad. They were kind of manic and... Frank. It was a simple punishment, but very effective, as speech is what separates us from the animals, after all. Other animals. Humans are still animals, arguably. We are. Just highly complex, awesome animals. Are we, though? I mean, I don't know. Hot pockets are kind of cool. You think that, okay. Moving on, Jesus. The inability to speak to other humans is crushing, frustrating, and a fast track to loneliness and depression eventually. This is why the speech disorder known as aphasia is particularly haunting. Aphasia is the inability to communicate properly when damage is done to the language areas of the brain. Depending on which damaged area it is, people will have trouble speaking or understanding others' speech, reading, or writing. This can be very debilitating to people suffering from this affliction or people dealing with people suffering from this affliction. It's basically like trying to communicate with someone who is from another country, but their language is neither something you can look up, there's no handbook to look it up or to understand. It's very odd. There are two parts of the brain that are crucial in communication. The Broncas area and the Wernicke's area. Wernicke's? Bronca and Wernicke's. Wernick. Maybe it's Wernick, it's German. The Broncas area, is in the frontal lobe of the brain, and this is the area responsible for us producing speech. So the Bronca is the thing that sends language messages to our muscles that allow us to produce speech. Like I'm speaking right now, my muscles are moving, but my muscles couldn't even move if it wasn't for that part in the brain telling you to move them in certain ways that produce words. The Wernicke's area, however, located in the temporal lobe, is what is responsible for word choice and understanding. So, when you choose the words you speak of, that is what you are using every time you speak specific words or are trying to understand other people's words. You say but, that's I don't know how to explain it. It's basically like a gun, right? Tell me you're not. Tell me you're redneck without telling me you're a redneck. Everything goes back to guns. No, but I'm serious. Like a gun. So like the gun in the chamber is what the trigger is like the bronchus area, right? Because that's what fires the bullet, and the bullet is the word, and the bullet that goes in the chamber is like the Wernicke's area. The Wernicke's area is what chooses the word, chooses the bullet, and the bronchus area is what pulls the trigger to release the bullet. I gotta say, that's actually pretty accurate and kind of correct. Of course it is. I'm smart. Well, don't get ahead of yourself there, buddy. Though these are just two small areas in your brain, they do a ton of work, literally millisecond by millisecond. Telling or listening to a story could be a struggle. Simply reading a book or a news article could be a challenge. Even simpler things like writing a text to a friend or asking for a glass of water could be an insurmountable task to somebody with aphasia. And, of course, the worst case scenario, which is you are hurt, badly hurt, but you can't tell anyone why or where you were hurt. Or where you hurt. On your body. On the body. It's some truly haunting stuff. And when you bring that back to the Tower of Babel, like I was talking about, you begin to start feeling really bad for the Babylonians. No. You don't feel bad for the Babylonians? No. Them stupid sons of bitches. Trying to reach heaven, are you kidding me? Alright, man, okay. My rooster is out right now, Frank. And, so you're gonna be hearing him a lot in this video. I don't know what to do with him. I don't want to put him away. I don't want to silence him in any way, so I guess you're just gonna have to deal with it. I have to deal with it too. It's very frustrating. So just to let you know, that crowing going on is, that's Big Frank. But aphasia is but a broad term for the inability to communicate. There are many different severities and lengths of time to have this disorder that varies from individual to individual. And as at least a plus, aphasia does actually not, it does not affect, nor is it an indicator of intelligence. Even if you have aphasia, you know, back in the day, I'm sure people were just like, they're mentally ill or something like that, but they're actually not. It is purely parts of your brain that are supposed to create communication, and yet they do not create communication accurately, kind of like I'm doing right now. It's very interesting because it is just like, imagine being like what if you're like a super high IQ person, like Einstein or something? Yeah, or like Adam Sandler or something. Adam Sandler? Yeah. Okay. Alright, Adam Sandler then. High IQ. 180 IQ. Okay. You're Adam Sandler, and you have a high IQ, but you can't speak properly or communicate properly to the fellow humans around you. Like, that would be kind of crazy. Dude, just thinking about it on your own, like even not being a high IQ person, it's like, I'm a pretty smart person. I'm decently educated, right? Right. I think so. You were homeschooled. Okay, well, uh-huh. But I read, right? I read decently. But imagine, like, we're gonna get to the causes of it in a second, but imagine if you, like, all of a sudden could not speak. That would be so frustrating. Like, I don't know how you would, or write, as a writer, dude, that, worst nightmare. Worst fucking nightmare, dude. Worst nightmare ever for a writer. I can't write properly, are you kidding me? So before we move on, I just want to say that I did not write down the different forms of it. There are several different forms of it. As I just said, aphasia comes in very broad terms depending on the damage and depending on the individual. But I do want to read here really quick a couple things that I found in my Merck manual. This is the Merck manual. I love these books, by the way. Um, and this is kind of an old version of the Merck manual, but it still has aphasia in it, and it has two examples here of what aphasia could sound like or look like to, depending on the person. Like I said, these are just two examples of versions of it, but we have in the Merck manual, it has Wernicke's aphasia and Broca's aphasia, which are the two parts of the brain we just talked about. They'll come back later too. But Wernicke's aphasia, as it reads, Wernicke's aphasia, people with Wernicke's aphasia, a condition that may follow temporal lobe damage, seem to speak fluently, but sentences come out as garbled, confused strings of words, sometimes referred to as word salad. So, an example of Wernicke's aphasia that they have here is Wernicke's aphasia. Answer to questions are given fluently but are nonsensical. Question, how are you doing today? Answer, when? Easy for my river runs black boxes whizzle about a H on when boobles come. So basically garbled speech, kind of what you would think of somebody who has some sort of language barrier disorder. Which makes sense, as I just talked about, the Wernicke's area, Kovacs analogy, is the bullet. Imagine if the bullet for that gun was not the bullet for that gun. You have a 44 Magnum, and you put in a 22 bullet for some reason. And that's basically what it comes out as. The Wernicke is part of the brain, is part of what's choosing words to go with other words and sentences and phrases. So, Wernicke's aphasia makes sense. You're not using the right words for anything. It's nonsensical speech, because if you can't even find the right word to use in a sentence, it's going to come out very garbled. Broca's aphasia, however, it reads, people with Broca's aphasia, excessive aphasia, largely grasp the meaning of words and know how they want to respond, but have trouble saying the words. Their words are forced out slowly and with great effort, often interrupted by expletives. Which, again, makes sense, because the Broca's aphasia, Broca's in the brain, that is what you use to enunciate words. That's what gives you the ability to pronounce words correctly. And people with Broca's aphasia know what they're trying to say, but just can't say it. So, an example here is Broca's aphasia. Answers to questions are given hesitantly, but are sensible. Question, what is this a picture of? Dog barking. Answer, no. Damn. Pet. Yeah. Pet. Makes noise. So you can kind of see how that's like a person being shown a picture who has Broca's aphasia knows what they're trying to say. They see the picture of the dog barking and they know that's a dog barking, but they can't say the words dog or barking because their Wernicke is working right, but their Broca that is telling them that is how to pronounce words is not working right. And when those two are not in conjunction, obviously, you get both of those. Some people have them both at the same time. Some people just have them Wernicke's or Broca's aphasia. But those are, you can see how if your mouth's not working right, but your brain is, you can be able to be like, oh, I know what that is. That's a dog barking. But I can't say a dog barking. It's like when you're trying to think of a word and you can't think of a word, so you say a different word. That's basically what it's like, except with everything. And again, those are only two examples that are kind of my favorites in the way of like showing like what exactly it does. Because obviously several centers in the brain contribute to communication very, very microscopically, and when damaged, you can get different outcomes for aphasia. Aphasia is a broad term, is basically what I'm saying. But those are two examples of, like, to give you an example of what the Wernicke area in your brain and the Broca area in your brain do and their conjunction with each other. When we looked it up, there was like 5 different versions, like actual labeled versions of aphasia. Right, and we're gonna get into like how to diagnose certain ones, but it's not. It's basically, yeah, it's a very broad term because there's so many things that can go wrong with speech that are just kind of difficult to even consider diagnosing it. So, there you go. Just like its symptoms or its diagnosable features or whatever you want to call them, symptoms causes of aphasia can vary. It is specifically damage to the language area of the brain, but there are common causes that may disrupt those areas in particular. These include, and I'm going to read straight from my script, these include stroke, brain tumor, brain infection, brain inflammation, shut up, Frank, or dementia or Alzheimer's. Damage to brain function can be an indirect cause as well, and other things that cause brain function to go awry is things that include aneurysms, brain surgeries, concussions, epilepsy, migraines, and some heavy metal poisons. Obviously, if you're being poisoned. And that's just the condensed list, too. So that's just the condensed list of causes that I found that they kind of listed. There are several others too that happen with different diseases that you can get, all these things that contribute to aphasia can be just as wide as the term itself. The brain is a very kind of sensitive organ in that way. Is it an organ? Is it a muscle? I think it's a muscle, isn't it? Isn't technically it's a muscle? I don't know. I think you're right. I think it's a muscle. Yes. Yes. Hear that? Hear that, world? I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. For once, you're right. Shut up. Yeah. Aphasia has no particular age range either, as it can happen anytime with any particular damage to the brain, but people who are 65 and older are obviously more susceptible, as strokes are more common, dementia and Alzheimer's are more common, which, is another indirect cause of it. Yeah, so good luck all you 65 and olders. In the United States alone, 180,000 people are diagnosed with aphasia every year. This is equivalent to 1 in every 272 group of people, which is a lot. That's actually a lot. Think you have aphasia? Don't worry, a physical exam and a few tests conducted by a lovely healthcare professional will be there to tell you. They will ask you a series of questions, mostly about your medical history, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, is that kind of mean to someone who has aphasia? Like, being like, oh, we'll have to ask you questions. Like, that's not my strong suit. Yeah, I feel like that's a bit, counterintuitive, a bit. Yeah, exactly. It's like, ask me to draw something, and it's just like, I can't draw. Or asking somebody to dance and they're like, I have 2 left feet. Yeah, that's what it's equivalent to. We're making great examples here. God. We were gonna get mad. If you do indeed pop positive for these tests, your healthcare provider will refer you to a speech language pathologist, or an SLP for short. The SLP will do a actual thorough exam to try and identify what form of aphasia you have. They do this through 3 steps. Number 1, fluency. Does your words come out smoothly? Can you talk okay? Can you write okay? Are your words meaningful in thought and congruent with your thoughts? Kind of. Do you speak okay, I guess? Second part is understanding. Do you accurately understand what people are trying to tell you? Can you understand written words? Can you comprehend others' speech and your own? The third step is then repetition. Can you repeat simple words or phrases and repeat them within the same tone and meaning that you did before? I never saw it said like it was an acronym, but they really missed out on the opportunity to call this the FUR test. Fluency, understanding, and repetition, otherwise known as FUR. FUR! It sounds nice. Though, to be fair, a person with speech dysfluency or aphasia or whatever probably would be like, what? Yeah, exactly. They'd be like, I'm doing what, fur, huh? I promised I shaved today, I did. Exactly. After you take this fur test, the SLP or whoever will run more tests, both like just mental and physical tests, like taking your piss and all that kind of stuff, to do more thorough exams, and even thorough exam, right? Even thorougher than the thorough exam, in order to diagnose, like, to make sure that what you have is aphasia and not some other thing. So, causes for aphasia can sometimes be like an infection, a brain infection, which I think is one that I mentioned in the causes. But obviously, if you have a brain infection, you need some more help for things other than just aphasia. Right, the aphasia is a symptom of the infection that is eating your brain, not... Yeah, exactly, not just, oh yeah, I hit my head and this happened. Could bleeding in the brain cause it? I feel like if you're bleeding in your brain, you just die. Oh, like in rare cases, maybe you could be like, well, like, you could live for a longer time. Like they say after an appendix burst, you need to go to the doctor like immediately because those are like horrible fluids. But like I've known about people who have gone on weeks, right, after their appendix had burst, and they just keep on trucking. So I don't know, but something tells me that if you're bleeding in your brain, I think you would have other symptoms before you would start speaking funny. Right, an infection is more of a long-term kind of deal. Yeah, it's more of a slow burn, if you will. Slow burn in the brain. Cooking some monkey brains. Chilled monkey brains. Remember that from Indiana Jones? I remember that. That part always scared me as a kid. Yeah, kind of scared me too. I was never squeamish as a kid, but that part, when I was a kid, I was like, oh. Yeah. Ugh, the bugs always looked good though. When they opened up the little shell bugs and ate them, yeah, it looks good. The eels looked good too. Everything at that table looked good except for the monkey brains. Yeah, the monkey brains. Oh, and the soup had an eyeball in it. Okay, that's true. Extra protein. Has eyeballs protein? Are like the whites of your eyes like egg whites? That's my question. I don't know. You're the one who ate an eyeball. Well, it was a fish eyeball, so it was kind of like very small and tiny, and I don't know, man. It's a question to ask. We're just here to ask questions, man. This thorougher exam will also help to determine a treatment plan for your aphasia as well. So it is very important, this thorougher exam. Unfortunately, if you have long-term aphasia or permanent aphasia, the only real cure is speech therapy, because short-term aphasia, or if it's aphasia caused by, infection of the brain, there is a possibility that your neurons will heal and you'll be okay, and you will get your speech back. But with long-term aphasia or permanent aphasia, as a result of like a brain injury where it's like, scarred over, it's not going to re-heal itself. There isn't many treatment plans for it. They're working on medication type stuff, but it is still a long time coming, and it doesn't actually solve the problem, because it's not, when it comes to human speech, it is not as simple as healing your finger. It is a very complex part of the human brain that determines what words are, how to understand and read. Even body language can sometimes be attributed to these parts of your brain that help you determine what to say. Like when you see somebody crying and you're just like, oh, you're crying. You know that instantly with another human to recognize sadness. All of these things are congruent with this temporal or frontal lobe type area. And obviously, it's just so much of a more difficult process. So the only real treatment for long-term or permanent aphasia is relearning how to speak again, which would be horribly tough. It would be like moving to a new country and learning the language off of nothing. Right, with nothing going into it. Yep, you just are there and you're learning a new language. Obviously, this is a tough journey to take, so anyone with it is definitely is suggested that you have family members and loved ones being very supportive and very patient. Good luck if you don't have any of those. Now we get to the more history segmented, which is kind of one of my favorite segments. Yeah. Amazingly, aphasia has been documented for a long-ass time. One of the oldest, probably not the oldest, but one of the oldest recorded medical records is the Edwin Smith Papyrus. This papyrus is very old, and it is one of the first Egyptian records that does not mention magic or gods or praying or any kind of thing. Instead, it delves into the actual anatomy of these injuries and actually brings forth these injuries in a more medicalized term, which is absolutely insane when I tell you how old this thing is. As for the aphasia bit, the papyrus mentions several patients, and among one of those patients is a person who has a type of speech disfluency, particularly after suffering a brain injury. So we can conclude that this person has aphasia way back in the day. And for context, getting to that point, this papyrus is dated 1600 BC. That's crazy. For them to have documented that and then been earlier today we're just like, oh yeah, aphasia's a thing, but then back in the day they had that too. It's like, that's crazy. Right. It proves that our brains haven't really changed though, has it? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it kind of means we aren't moving forward as an evolutionary species, but I think that we've reached probably the pinnacle. Like you said, hot pockets. That's the pinnacle of any creature. When you create hot pockets, you're there. You are the evolutionary pinnacle. But what about more modern terms? This was obviously a long time ago, and we can't even speak to those people. So, in the mid-19th century, aphasia became more of a big topic and a topic of concern, and everyone was like, we're looking into this. It was crazy. Scientists and philosophers were pooling their efforts together and trying to solve this interesting, a bunch of interesting things about medical science. And this is actually what became the psychology field, which I find fascinating, that is started by scientists and philosophers coming together, because is that not what psychology is? It takes factual things but puts them into a form that is not physical. Right. They take factual things and then take them and apply them to something you can't see or touch, which is the psychological parts of your brain. Right. I think that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Part of this psychology movement and this whole push for newer, more medical things was Branca and his colleagues, which obviously, Branca is part of your brain. Branca and his colleagues were some of the first to write about aphasia, but it was Wernicke, the other part of your brain, that was credited for actually having in-depth writings about what aphasia is and perhaps what causes it. But forget those freaking nerds, because the main prize goes to F.J. Gall, as he was the first to report on this disorder when he was studying the human brain after injury. He gave a full description on aphasia and studied what wounds meant what, and was actually wrote on all these different kind of collusions between parts of the brain and what parts made what, and was the first to actually, be like, this is what causes it. These parts in your brain are what causes it. Which is kind of a shame, because two parts of my own brain are named after Wernicke and Branca, right? Braca. It doesn't have an N. I keep wanting to say Branca, but it doesn't. Branca and Wernicke are two people that their names have literally been solidified in my brain. Literally, because two parts of my brain are named after these people. Right? Mine too. Well, you're not real, so you don't have a brain. Are you calling me dumb? Yeah! Well, good. I'm glad you have those people in your brain. Okay, well, I have plenty of people. I don't want any more people in my brain. No, please, God, no. But I'm just saying that it's a shame that this guy, Gall, F.J. Gall, does not have a part. And maybe he does, too. But there wasn't one that I saw. There was no part of the human brain that was named after this guy who actually did the physical research. Wernicke and Braca just wrote on the subject. They were like, oh, this is cool. This is what I think it is, or this is what I think it is, or we need to study this. But they didn't actually do the actual physical, gutty works that was going in and examining an injured brain. That was Gall. So I'm kind of disappointed. Yeah. We didn't look into it, though. There might be a part of the brain that is named after him that could be a different part of his work. Because it wasn't like this guy was a full, aphasia doctor or something. He just got to it before anyone else did, and it was in his field. So maybe there's a different name for him. Okay, I can go with that. Yeah, maybe there's different. We didn't look at it, but it also wasn't mentioned. So, in conclusion, speech and understanding is important. Understanding particularly is important, which is why I do this show, because it's fun and you get to learn stuff. But the inability to speak and understand others is, although not a physical disorder or disability, it is a terrible, terrible disability to have for the people affected. These people are suffering, and it is a terrible thing to have to suffer from, particularly because it's something that you do every day. You speak every day, you enunciate every day. When you're scrolling your phone, you are understanding what is coming off of it. And just imagine if you couldn't do that, if everything was kind of somewhat of this really hard, you had to focus hard to even understand what was being projected at you. Hopefully a day will come when permanent and long-term aphasia can be cured, but until then, patience and speech therapy is the only real things that can help this thing called aphasia, which, by the way, is literally translates to a version of aphasia or aphasia or something like that in Greek, which means without speech. So, there you go. By the way, if this fascinates you as much as it did me, I also found, while I was doing my research, that there is a book that is all about aphasia. It is on Amazon, and it is called Milestones in the History of Aphasia, Theories and Protagonists. it looks good and it has great reviews and is something that I would love to read. Actually, I would actually buy that book. I would actually buy that book. It's like $77, but worth it. Worth it. The knowledge is worth it. Anyways, I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there that I saw that and I was just like, oh, they made a book on this, a whole book on this, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, this book actually looks kind of dope. And people said that it was really good and engaging and cool, and a great history archive of aphasia and, you know, all how it has progressed through history, how people have learned to understand it more or less. So that was the video. Also, by the way, while you're on Amazon, you might want to pick up my book, Red Haven, while you're there. Link in the description. But yeah, you know, if you're picking up books on Amazon, you know, you could just, you know, why not, you know, just kind of, you know, pick up my book, by the way, while you're at it. Even though it's cursed. Don't buy it. Actually, don't buy it. I don't want you to get a ghost in your house or a demon or something like that. Don't buy it. You wouldn't even understand. You wouldn't even understand the kind of crazy shit that's in this book, okay? Are you done? I'm done with my plug, yes. Okay. Shameless. Shameless. Anyways, that was the video, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next one when I tie Kovac to bricks and throw him in the river largest. Peace.